What is it about this game? Why does it capture us so completely? You could fill a library with everything written about golf and still never hold the answer. It is glorious, maddening, humbling, and redeeming. Contested across a sprawling landscape, yet played mostly between the ears. So if it calls you, if you would do anything to get just a little better, we know exactly how you feel.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our very first Titleist UK and Ireland live seminar. My name is Josh Mackey. I'm the Titleist Golf Ball Marketing Coordinator here in the UK. With me today, I've got two of our golf ball product specialists. We're here today to talk about everything golf ball related. So whether that's golf ball fitting, golf ball production, what do the pros look at when they're testing golf balls, and hopefully help you at home work out which golf ball is going to be best for your game. Before we go through into some detail, Tom, Morgan, do you want to introduce yourselves for everyone?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Josh. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. My name's Tom Hiscock. As Josh said, I'm a golf ball product specialist, part of our UK and Ireland team. I cover the south, southwest, and most of Wales. Quite a big area. On a day-to-day basis, I'm out on the road, essentially helping golfers find the right golf ball for their game, and ultimately helping them improve and enjoy the game just that a little bit more.
Perfect. Morgan?
Yeah, so similar story to Tom, really. I look after the east and southeast of England, going to golf clubs, talking to golfers about the golf ball, explaining the differences between them, recommending a golf ball to you, and seeing you on your way. And you know, we do that day in, day out. Both of us are PGA professionals and been in the game sort of 10 or 12 years, really. So
Have lived and breathed it for a little while now.
Yeah, pretty much from school, isn't it?
yeah, absolutely.
Perfect. So a few housekeeping notes just before we get going for everyone watching. We are actually running a live chat. You might be able to see it just below the screen there. If you have any questions throughout all of what we're going to talk about this evening, please feel free to pop them in there. We've got a bit of a Q&A session at the end, so we can answer some there, if not during the seminar itself. We also actually have a few prizes up for grabs for those of you who do ask questions. It'll be a completely random draw, probably done tomorrow. We've got some prizes that include a Team Titleist goodie bag, 6 dozen golf balls, and a chance to be ball fit by one of your local product specialists, and take away some golf balls there as well. So, I guess a good place to start. We asked some questions when you were signing up to the seminar and on social media this week. Why is a golf ball so important? What do you look for when you're selecting a golf ball? We heard a few different answers. I think it's fair to say, from soft, price, confidence in the shots you're going to hit and feel. Tom, from a Titleist perspective, what do we look at when we're designing a golf ball, and what should people at home look for?
It's a really good question, Josh. I think when we think about golf balls, it's quite commonly overlooked. Yeah, I think it's fair to say that most golfers now are fairly accustomed to taking lessons and having their clubs custom fitted, but overlook the one thing that they hit on every single shot. So the golf ball is extremely important, and one word that crops up quite often is consistency. From a consistency perspective, if that's what we're all searching for, the golf ball is a great place to start, because it's the only thing we hit on every shot. So if we can start there, and if we can do a great job in helping you find the right golf ball, it's really just going to make the game that little bit more enjoyable, isn't it? So it's extremely important. There's a number of ways that we help people find the right golf ball, of which we're going to talk to you about tonight.
Perfect. So I guess one of the big things I hear when I'm out playing golf at different events and venues is I reach in my golf bag, I pick up whatever I find, and I play that, and it doesn't make a difference about the model or the brand. Morgan, how much of a difference does that actually make?
Yeah, I mean, it's so easy, right? We play 3 holes, hit it into the trees, lose it. go into the bag, or we find another one in the trees and play another 3 holes with that one. But the differences in golf ball are in how high they fly, because each fly different heights. They spin differently, and when we say spin, we mean short game control. We mean when you hit the golf ball into the green, how much control and stopping power you get, and what the product feels like. They're the 3 key differences, and every time we change that golf ball, we're going to be changing all of those aspects. So like Tom said, we want to keep it consistent, make sure we're getting consistent results out of the product. And keeping that golf ball the same for the entire round of golf is going to be really important to that.
It's so easy to blame ourselves, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. We've played the 3 holes, we've lost it, we go to the next green and we hit this, what we think is a really good chip shot, and then it goes 10 foot past the hole and we stand there doing another few practice swings, and then we go to the pro and say, I need a short game lesson, but maybe we've just changed golf ball and got a different reaction and not accounted for it.
Perfect. I mean, is it the same with pros as well? I mean, looking from a Titleist perspective, we've been heavily involved in the pro game. We celebrated this year 75 years of being the #1 ball at the US Open. We were 28 wins on the DP World Tour this season, 23 on the Ladies European Tour, with ball counts across the season of 72% on the DP World Tour and 82% on the LET, trusting a Titleist golf ball. These are pretty impressive stats. What do we do? Well, how do we talk about golf ball selection with pros?
So we take them through a full process. We want to you're hitting the golf ball with every club in the bag. So we're going to make sure we cover all of that. We would start with the shorter clubs and work back to the tee. There's a couple of reasons we do that. Like I just mentioned about spin, we mean control going into the green. So, in terms of the amount of shots you hit, you're going to hit more with your wedges than you are with your driver. And like I say, when we talk about spin, that's mainly where the differences are with wedges. So it's beneficial in terms of performance, because that's where the greatest difference is in the products, but also where you spend most of your time. So we start at the green and then draw back to the tee, hitting some slightly longer shots, looking at ball flight, spin, and feel.
We see a lot of tour pros now, I guess, jumping around between different events, both on the PGA Tour, the DP World Tour. Obviously, within that, playing in very different weather conditions, very different grass types. Do we see golfers changing when they kind of come back across from those different tours and different events?
I mean, ultimately, no. They would play the same ball all the time. Typically, we might think, I'm going to go to a links golf course, it's going to be windy, so I need to go to a low spin ball to bring the flight down. We would not necessarily recommend that, because not every shot you're going to hit at that links golf course is going to be into wind. And you're going to be there's going to be a time where you've got a wedge shot and the pin's at the front and you're downwind and you need spin. So it's the guys on tour, it's easier for those guys to start with height and spin and they bring it down themselves than it is to try and add spin.
So yeah, when those guys are coming from the I guess the two extremes of the US Open versus the Open, they're sticking with the same ball for that consistency.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They're adjusting themselves. They might even change clubs, change their bounce and grind with their wedges, or change their hybrid into a long iron. They'll do that as opposed to change golf ball, because if they change the golf ball, it's going to affect every club in their bag.
It's too big a variable, isn't it? The performance differences, like I say, affect so many different areas of the game, don't they? So yeah, it's a great talking point.
We've obviously launched new Pro V1 and Pro V1X at the start of this year, back in February. We've seen a lot of tour players as a result go into the new model of Pro V1X. Tom, can you talk us a little bit about that? I mean, just to give people at home some reference for this, 20% of the DP World Tour Championship players played the new version of Pro V1X. So why have they made that change?
Yeah, it's a really good question. From a seeding point of view, I mean, we take a long time from a research and development point of view when we're bringing out a new product. So prior to the golf ball coming to market, the players on tour, on all of the tours worldwide, will try and test the product, but some players will take longer to test than others. Some players will go straight into that product because they want to be up to date. They want to be using the most current model, but others will take a little bit longer. So October typically is when we tend to start that seeding process, and then the golf ball comes to market in in February, earlier this year. But yeah, had a real success story with the 2023 Pro V1 and Pro V1 X. We all know what it's like. We've all got clubs in our bag that we love, and we try and hold on for a bit longer. And some players are like that with golf balls. So we're really pleased that so many of the players moved into the 2023 product. But to your point, Josh, Pro V1 X, typically to the golfers that are, watching us this evening, Pro V1 is the golf ball that a lot of players will go and pick off the shelf. Pro V1 X is another option in that premium family. And when we're talking about the tour players, it's really because it's not because they're a tour player that a lot of them are playing Pro V1 X. It's because they love spin. We'll come into the sort of the real differences between the golf balls when we talk about them in a bit more depth later. But the tour players love spin. Morgan mentioned taking flight down, taking spin off. So if the players are doing that, then they have spin when they need it from Pro V1 X. That's the highest spinning golf ball we currently offer. And seeing many of the players go into that product has been great. Now, there might be players watching this evening who want more spin as well. Just because they're not a tour player doesn't mean they shouldn't play Pro V1 X. Yeah. But primarily spin. To the short answer, it is spin.
Perfect. So
short game spin.
Short game spin, absolutely. So Morgan, can you talk a little bit more in depth about the process the pros go through when selecting that golf ball and going through that seeding process?
Yeah, so like I mentioned, they would work green side back to tee. Some of them go through a more thorough process than others, when they might take it home and do some testing on their own. But again, like we would do with the golfers that we see, we start with the shorter shots and work back to the tee, because that's where the greatest difference is where we can have the greatest impact on your game, and it's where you hit the most amount of shots in the game. So they would put more focus on their wedges, work back to the driver, just like we would with golfers on a day-to-day basis.
Perfect. Yeah, so I mean, I can see a few questions coming through. My next question was about those amateur golfers. For those watching at home, why do we not necessarily start with driver in that kind of fitting scenario?
We do consider it. It is definitely a consideration because it's one of the clubs in the bag, but we end there. And ultimately, because every one of us, all three of us, whoever we are on the golf course, when we go out on the golf course and we pull our driver out, we want the golf ball to go as far as possible. So all the golf balls in the range are designed to do that. However, if we were all presented with a 30-yard chip shot, we could all play that in three completely different ways, using three completely different clubs, techniques, or try and land it in different places. So we start to separate out what we do as golfers around the green, but we all want the same thing back at the tee. So all the golf balls are designed to do that off the tee and give us maximum distance off the tee. And that's really why we make so many different golf balls, is because we all want different things around the green. So we can just try to match that in first and then go back to the driver to make sure it's still optimum for you off the tee.
Perfect. I mean, Morgan mentioned then we've got a few different golf balls. We've got 8 different models sat in front of us. Can you talk us through a little bit of the differences between those and why we have so many golf balls?
Yeah, it's a really, really good question, isn't it? And I do sympathise with golfers when you walk into a pro shop and you see so many. It can be quite confusing. So I'll just go through it nice and simply and explain the differences. But typically it's performance and preference. From a performance point of view, Morgan's already mentioned it: flight, spin and feel. So these are 3 things that are really important when we're trying to find out what you as the golfer wants from the golf ball. We also have preferences as well. A big part of that is how much you want to pay for the golf ball. Feel is a preference as well, color options and things like that. So if we start on the right hand side, just in front of us here, we've got true feel and velocity, so our preferred performance options. The 2 main differences here are feel and flight. So true feel is a slightly softer option in how it feels, primarily with the shorter shots. The feel is going to be a bit more prevalent with those short shots. So it feels softer and flies a little bit lower. Velocity flies a bit higher, feels a little bit firmer. So golfers who are looking for a product within that category have 2 options. As we then progress from right to left, we move into our tailored performance options. So we have Tour Soft and Tour Speed. there's sometimes a bit of confusion around these golf balls. So Toursoft is a two-piece golf ball. We'll come on to construction in a minute. Similar differences to true feel and velocity. So Toursoft will fly a little bit lower than Tour Speed. It feels softer than Tour Speed, but the main difference here is we start to talk about spin. Typically, the golf balls on the left-hand side, True Feel, Velocity and Toursoft, are lower spin options. Like Morgan mentioned, when we're talking about spin, we're talking about the shorter shots. But Tour Speed is the first golf ball in the range before we get to the premium options, where that soft urethane cover comes in. So that's where we get a bit more spin out of Tour Speed than Toursoft. We then move into the premium performance options. Now the price is the same across the 4 models. We have AVX, Left Dash Pro V1X, Pro V1X and Pro V1. AVX is alternative to V1X. Alternative from a flight perspective. So it flies lower than Pro V1, it feels softer than Pro V1, and it spins less than Pro V1. Pro V1 is the golf ball which is the best for the majority of players. It's optimal in terms of ball flight from a sort of a mid-penetrating flight. It feels lovely and soft, and the golfer gets a nice amount of spin on the higher side with irons and wedges going into the target. Pro V1X, nice and simply, we like to explain it as X gives you extra height, extra spin relative to that of Pro V1. It just feels a fraction firmer. Then we have Left Dash Pro V1X. Left Dash Pro V1X has the same flight and feel characteristics as Pro V1X, but spins less due to a slightly thinner, firmer cover. So it spins less than Pro V1 and Pro V1X.
Perfect. So you mentioned there, I guess, a little bit about some different structures. What is the differences between structures between the golf ball, and how does that impact performance?
Yeah, again, so it's a really good question, and something we cover quite often in our education and fitting events. So we have 2-piece golf balls and we have multi-layer golf balls. It can be a bit confusing when we start talking about 3-piece, 4-piece, 5-piece. We have made golf balls up to 7 layers just in experimentation, which is great for us from a
R&D point
of
of
view.
view.
We want to push the boundaries and see what the golf balls can do. From a 2-piece ball perspective, it's a core and a cover. Typically, the core is going to be a little bit softer than the cover. So with True Feel, Velocity and Toursoft, they have a firmer Surlin cover on the golf ball. These are typically going to be a little bit lower in spin with those short shots, and they're going to be a little bit less expensive. As we then progress into multi-layered golf balls, we have three 3-piece golf balls. It's a bit of a mouthful. So Tour Speed, AVX and Pro V1. These golf balls consist of a core, a mid-layer, or a mantle, or a casing layer, whatever you might call it, and then a cover on the outside. And essentially, we're now starting to add a little bit more luxury into the golf ball. When we're talking about this, we're talking about those shorter shots around the greens, a bit more versatility. The softer cover allows a little bit more spin and a few more options around the greens. But the layers allow us to manage spin when we're hitting longer shots. So we still have low long game spin to optimize distance, because nobody wants short distance off the tee. But then we have the added benefit of the soft cover around the greens. We then go into the Pro V1X models, 4-piece golf balls, multi-layered, the dual core construction of Pro V1X and Left Dash Pro V1X, with that mantle and then the soft cover on the outside. Essentially, as you make a golf ball firmer, typically the spin can increase. So the dual core allows us to graduate from in to out and manage spin when you're hitting longer shots and when your loft changes, essentially. So spin management, but also they will feel slightly different as well.
So Morgan, the other thing Tom mentioned when he was just briefly kind of describing what each golf ball does, it is flight. How do we change that from each golf ball?
Yeah, great question. And it's maybe one of those things that we overlook a little bit. Every single ball on there has a unique dimple pattern. The reason we can do that is because we don't just make all the golf balls from scratch ourselves. We actually also make the dimple cups and some of the tools and equipment that make the balls as well. So every ball's got a unique dimple pattern, and that dimple pattern controls how the air flows over it. The deeper you make the dimple, the lower the ball's going to fly, and the sharper the edge angle of each dimple, again, the lower the ball's going to fly. So that's how we can vary it, and we can actually change the depth of that dimple cup by 1/10,000th of an inch, which is pretty small. So we can really fine tune performance and optimize flight for every ball on there.
I mean, you mentioned some quite tight tolerances there when it comes to changing ball flight. How do we make sure every, let's say, Pro V1X, for example, if I walk into a pro shop down the road, pick up a dozen Pro V1X, it's the same performing Pro V1X that I'll buy in the US or Spain or wherever I am across the globe?
Yeah, so like I say, we make every single part of every golf ball ourselves, and every layer of every golf ball will go through at 30 quality control checks. Whether that be in True Feel or Pro V1, every layer will get that same 30 checks. And that could be X-raying, weight, dimensions, or visual as well. So every single layer will get those same checks. So you know you're getting the same quality around the world or in the same 3 packets or whoever's buying it. Some of the questions we get asked is it different for tour pros? It's the same product for the guys on tour as it is for us on the shelf.
Perfect. And one thing I noticed we haven't really spoken about yet is there isn't a ladies' golf ball sat in front of us. Why is that?
So the golfer doesn't know, the ball doesn't know who's hitting it, right?
It's a great question.
Yeah. We wouldn't consider age or handicap either. For us, we fit the golf ball based on flight, feel and spin, based on what you want out of the product, not your attributes or who you are.
So what about swing speed? Do we fit based on this? Do we talk about it? How does that fit into this equation?
Yeah, it's another really good point, isn't it? And something that comes up quite often, when golfers come to us for a fitting, a lot of them would expect to hit the driver first. Club head speed, when we talk about club head speed, the driver is the first club we think of, isn't it? But actually, we don't just carry the driver. That'd be quite difficult. So we've got loads more clubs in the bag, and we swing every club at a different speed. And when we think about the breakdown of our round, we spend, I think Morgan alluded to it earlier, we spend more time around the greens. So for us, the emphasis is on those short shots, those scoring shots. And that's why we fit from green to tee. And obviously, the swing speed will change for every player and every shot. You're out on the golf course and you're faced with so many different challenges. And the swing speed will fluctuate. So we can't base a golf ball recommendation on one swing speed because it varies so often.
Excellent. Perfect. So I guess it's maybe a good place to finish just before we go to some live questions. So please keep firing them away in the chat area. I can see a few coming through already. Now we've maybe confused everyone about what golf ball they should play. Tom, where does everyone start?
Yes, it's a really good question. I definitely don't want to sound like a broken record, but basically everything we've kind of mentioned this evening, we would encourage golfers to maybe think about a couple of golf balls within our range, take them onto the golf course and work from green to tee. Consider all shots. Don't just consider your putter. Don't just consider how the golf ball performs off the tee. Think about your shot selection around the greens. Think about the club selection. Think about how you like the golf ball to feel when you're putting. All these considerations are so important because ultimately, like we said earlier, this is the one thing you're going to hit on every shot. So we want to make sure we're optimizing performance in every single category of your bag and every single area of your game. So consider everything. And, price, color, performance, preference. There's so many different areas. And we have 8 models there to kind of suit the needs of every golfer. But flight, spin, feel, and then other considerations like...
The only thing I'd add into that and recommend is try and do it at the same time with a few different golf balls, because like we started with, you play one hole with one and one hole with another. If you can take them out, hit some wedge shots with a couple of different golf balls, have a look at the spin, the flight, the feel, go back, hit some iron shots, do the same process, and it gives you the best chance to see those differences. Make your decision and stick to it and play the same ball every time.
That's a great point.
Perfect. Just to, I guess, start with some of the questions we've got coming on here. I've got one from David. So he had a ball fitting a while ago where it was suggested he either played Pro V1 or AVX. Has the AVX changed so much that it's worth reconsidering which golf ball he should play?
Yeah, I mean, I'll take this one if you like. It's a good question. In terms of how AVX and Pro V1 compare to each other, is the same. AVX is still a lower flying, lower spinning, softer feeling option. So, the reason you chose one of those back when you were fitted is still going to apply now. The only reason I'd recommend changing is if you wanted to change the ball flight, the spin, or the feel. How they compare to each other is still the same.
Perfect. Great answer. Another question we've got, which kind of leads into that a little bit, I guess, is from Ollie. So what is the optimal dimple pattern and arrangement on a Titleist golf ball that maximizes lift and reduces drag, resulting in longer and more accurate shots? Is there a golf ball that does that?
That's
a great question.
No, really. We've got thousands of dimple patterns in the R&D department, and there's no real correlation to number or amount or size. The only real correlation is depth. The deeper, the lower, the sharper the edge angle, the lower the ball will fly. We've got dimple patterns of 500-600 that work brilliantly, some of 500-600 that work really poorly, and same for dimples of 200-300 and 300. So in terms of amount or anything like that, there's no real one. We're constantly refining and trying out, and because it does depend on the spin characteristics of the golf ball as well. Both those two things have got to work in conjunction. But short answer, there isn't an ideal dimple pattern.
I think you could argue that every dimple pattern on every golf ball we make is optimal for the golfer who's going to play that product, because otherwise we wouldn't put that dimple pattern on that golf ball.
Yeah, that's what I was going to add. I mean, the R&D team spend a lot of time robot testing these golf balls to make sure they put the right dimple pattern on each golf ball and try a range of different patterns and depths to make sure that they find the right one.
I think this is why it's really, really important, and hopefully we've kind of highlighted it this evening, to get fitted, because we're not robots. We all swing the club differently. We all have different kind of performance goals. So we want to make sure the golf ball is ticking every box for us. When we're talking about optimization, it's about optimization for the individual, isn't it? So yeah, I think it's really, really important just to get fitted.
Perfect. So speaking of fitting, Mike here, just to come on to another question, says he was fitted for Pro V1 but has just changed his driver, which launches lower than the old one he had at the time of his fitting. Should he consider playing Pro V1X or just loft up his driver?
Great question. Sorry, remind me, which ball was he?
So he's currently in Pro V1.
Okay. I mean, yeah, as we kind of mentioned from a fitting standpoint, we start from the green and we work our way back to the tee. By the time we've kind of hit our longest iron, that we would still kind of consider a scoring club, we've pretty much made our recommendation. We just want to make sure that the golf ball's doing what we want it to do off the tee. If we need to change what the ball's doing off the tee, we'll change the driver, not the golf ball. We typically fit the golf ball to the wedges and the irons. We fit the driver to the golf ball, because most drivers are adjustable now. We can make so many tweaks and changes from a loft and CG perspective. That's going to have a much bigger effect on height and spin and overall performance with the driver than the golf ball will. But I mean, the dimple pattern of Pro V1X is designed to go higher, so in theory, yeah, but the loft of the driver will probably have more of an influence, providing David is happy with what the golf ball's doing with the short shots.
Perfect.
So it's making sure the whole package is there.
Perfect. Not just driver.
Not just driver.
Everything.
Yeah.
Okay.
The thing I'd add into that is we quite often see people say, I need to go to a lower spin ball off the tee to optimize driver. Whilst that may be the case, the difference isn't quite as great as we imagine. And for that, you're going to be giving up short game spin. So only if you want both of those things, then do it. But don't overlook your wedges for your driver when, as Tom said, changing the setting or loft will have similar, if not more, effect.
Perfect.
Yeah,
So I can also see a few questions about winter being here, and with the courses getting maybe a little bit wetter, should people be changing golf balls going into the winter season?
Who wants to take this one?
Yeah, I mean, again, we'd always recommend playing the same ball every time. Sometimes we sort of, when we get asked this question on the day-to-day, I think typically people are thinking that when it's colder, we need to go to a different golf ball to get more out of it and get the distance back. You know, the conditions themselves when it is colder is going to affect them all in the same way. They're all going to fly shorter and lower by the same amount. There isn't a golf ball when it's 2 degrees that's going to get you 10 yards back or anything like that. You know, so in those conditions, they're all still going to compare the same on Christmas Day as to a height of the summer.
Perfect.
Yeah, great point.
I've got a question here just to keep going with these. From Mark, should I practice with the same ball I play or just use the best balls for the tournaments? I hear this a lot at my golf club.
100%.
Pull out whatever you find,
Yeah,
but
if
I'll
you
bring the
can.
Pro V ones out when I'm playing a tournament.
Yeah, we hear that all the time, don't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, I play my Pro V1 on a comp day, and then I use anything during the week. Bit of a nightmare, to be honest. Again, when we talk about the kind of the consistency message, if you're practicing with a variety of golf balls, or a different golf ball to the golf ball you put into playing a competition, that golf ball will perform very differently. So you don't really know what to expect, and you know I guess it comes back to controlling the variables, control the controllables. Ideally, we want, you know, you'd never use a different 7-iron every time you played, or change your putter every week. Some people do that, but I wouldn't recommend it. But the golf ball, absolutely, it's really, really important to use the same one all the time, just so you get used to it, essentially.
Perfect. Thank you, Tom. I guess a question maybe going into a little bit more detail about the fitting process. So Robert here said he loves a ball with the feel of Pro V1, but really enjoys the characteristics of Pro V1X. I always find the other one when I'm using it, should I just stick with one, or is there another one I should maybe consider when looking at that? So I guess it's a question in summary, should he go with Pro V1 for the feel or the performance characteristics that you want of Pro V1X?
Yeah, so like we say, we would choose a ball based on flight, feel, and spin, and trying to balance those three things. You know, so simply, is it what do you value more? Do you value the feel over the performance, or the performance over the feel? And you know, and just weigh up those two things and make your decision and stick to it.
Feel is it feels a really good subject, actually, isn't it? Because it's so personal. You know, you could try the headphone test. Put some headphones in, hit both golf balls on the putting green, or hit a couple of chips with them, and see how much difference you notice from a feel perspective. Typically, it's going to be very sound orientated, and those things are linked very closely. So it just really comes down to your personal preference, doesn't it?
Perfect. And I guess a couple more questions. I think we've got a little bit of time left. So, question for Matt: what sort of performance factors are considered when making changes from one generation of golf ball to the next? Is it all driven at pro level? How does that work?
So we would test at all levels with PJ Pros, and you know, if you're a member of Team Titleist, you might get some white box to test yourself as well. So we would test at all levels for performance, and we would consider all of those things. We want to make sure that the golf ball that's coming out is giving you optimum performance, and everything's going to be performance driven on those three categories.
Perfect. Yeah. And I guess, like you said there, the performances, the characteristics that change very much depend on what those golfers want out of their golf ball.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But generally stay within the parameters of that flight, feel, spin, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect. One final question just through is about putting. So there's a few people asking about if they should consider the putter during a fitting process. Is that something you guys look at? And how the ball feels coming off the putter face?
A lot of it depends on, I mean, typically, you know, if a golfer is coming to us for a fitting, it's gonna take somewhere in the region of sort of half an hour to 45 minutes. It depends how much time we have, but we'll put the emphasis and the importance on the scoring shots. I know putting is obviously very important, but it's performance wise, there's not that much difference on the putting green. So if you delivered the putter exactly the same, hit the ball from exactly the same spot at the same speed, the rollout distance, for example, will be the same. If you're going to the same hole and you delivered the putter exactly the same way, the rollout is going to be exactly the same across the models. You know, if we have one golf ball that was really quick off the face and one that was really slow, that would be really hard to control. So it's more about how the golf ball sounds and how it feels. So it's certainly a consideration from a preference point of view, but not it's preference over performance.
The thing I would add, and it does come back to the question you asked earlier about I like the feel of V but the performance of X. You can get used to feel.
Yeah.
You know, we've all probably changed our driver at a certain time, and it felt strange for a couple of rounds, and then we got used to it. Same can happen with golf ball. You get used to how the golf ball feels. So yes, it's a consideration, you know, but try it for maybe a longer period of time and see if you get used to it, and again find that balance. So performance wise with putter, no, but feel, yes. You've got to like the feedback that you get from the product, but I would emphasize that you can get used to how it feels over time.
Perfect. And I see a few questions about where people can go to maybe find out a little bit more detail and how they go about a golf ball fitting. And at the moment we have some online consultations going on.
Yeah, this is something we kind of started during COVID in the pandemic. We started offering one-to-one virtual consultations, which were really successful. And now we're into the winter time and golfers aren't playing as much. It's a great option. So you can head to our website and book a consultation with either myself or one of my colleagues in the golf ball team, and we'll just spend half an hour having a chat about which golf ball's best for you and sort of point you in the right direction. In the main season, we offer different events as well, and we attend bigger events, and so there's loads of different ways that you can find out which is the right golf ball for you. We've also got social channels.
Social channels, and
Yeah.
I suppose a great point to add on there is if you can't get to see one of the great team, which I really recommend you do try and find them on one of these consultations. There is the selector tool on the website. So if you go to titleist.co.uk, there is a golf ball selector tool. Asks you a couple of quick questions about your game. Again, all based around what we've talked about today in terms of flight, feel, and spin. I can give you a good starting point to do some on-course testing like we've discussed already. So. I think that brings an end to our time. I know we haven't quite answered every question, and I apologise to those who we haven't gotten to just yet. Thank you to everyone who has asked questions and everyone watching. What we're going to do is we're going to take some time for the questions we haven't gotten to. We're going to work out some answers, whether that be just replying to your comments in the chat or maybe doing a couple videos over the next couple of weeks just to answer those for you in a little bit more detail. Again, thank you to everyone for tuning in. We're really excited to be doing more content like this going forward. So if there is anything you want to see from us, from a golf ball team perspective, please let us know, give us your feedback, and we'll look to hopefully do this again very, very soon. Again, just a reminder, we'll be doing some randomly selected prizes from everyone who's asked questions and got engaged with us. So you've got a chance to win a Titleist golf ball fitting with one of the team, 6 dozen golf balls, or a Team Titleist goodie bag. Thank you very much for giving us your attention for the last, I guess, 37-40 minutes. Really appreciate your time and look forward to speaking to you again soon.
Perfect.
Have a
Thanks,
great
everyone.
evening.
Thank you very much.